I'm Anil Kumar, and here is another example where we'll try to find the limits using properties of limits. Question is, find limit when x approaches 2 for square root of x squared minus x plus 1 using the properties of limits. So using the properties of limits, I'd like you to go through the video on properties and basic limits. So I have basic limits and properties combined, right? So that is how I'm trying to solve these questions. So both combined gives me complete properties of limits. Let us see how to use them. You need to justify each and every statement as you move forward. So we have the question here, limit of this function using properties of limits. So first let's dissect it open, right? So what we get here is that since it is all square root, we can use that property of square root, right? So that property says that the limit of this function is equal to, I could write half there, but at present I will write big square root here, correct? And within the square root, I will write that all other combinations. So the combinations here are limit as x approaches 2 for x squared. So we'll do it in steps. Minus limit as x approaches 2 for x plus limit as x approaches 2 for 1, correct? So what we have done here is, first case, we have limit of root, right? So we have this property which says limit of root. So when we have a limit of root, then the limit of root is the root of the limit, right? Limit of root is the root of limit, right? So root of limits. So that's how you get this big thing there. And then inside we have limit of sum and difference. Because I've used both, so I'll write sum and difference. Now the numbers 1 to 7 do not have any meaning for me, especially because I'm not following any particular book. Now, if you're following a book, then you can always write the number associated with your property, correct? Now, let's continue with this. So what we get here is square root, so I could say to the power of half at the end, but let me put square root. I like to use the square root itself. Now, this limit is the power limit. So I will do in steps and say, well, this is limit when x approaches 2 of x to the power of 2. So that is the power limit, correct? So let's again make our square root. And here it is, in my case, the basic limit. So I used power limit first, right? Power limit. And then I'm going to use the basic limit, which could be a property in your book, right? So property number 1 or 2. So in most books it is property number 2. So that limit is 2, right? So this I could write as the number 2, since limit of x when x approaches 2 is 2. And limit of 1 is a constant, right? So that is always, that is always a constant 1 itself. So that is the constant, right? So we have constant. For me, the constant is the basic property, correct? So these two for me are basic properties, but in books it could be property 1 and 2. Okay, now let's move forward. Now here again we get back to the basic property and we say, well, the limit of x when x approaches 2 is 2. So we get 2 square here. We can combine these two. Minus 2 plus 1 is minus 1. And now we can write 2 square is 4. So we have 4 minus 1. And we get square root of 3 as our answer, right? So that is how we can find the limit of the given function, right? So I hope the steps are clear to you, and it's very important to describe each and every step as you move forward. I hope that helps. Thank you and all the best.